Chargers just added major speed to their wide receiver room, and now just look at how different this group is from a year ago. I mean, basically we had two 30-year-old wide receivers that were pretty slow, like 4, 5-ish 40s. Now we have a bunch of young, very high potential wide receivers that are very fast as well. Joe Ortiz has really changed this unit. First, we got Ladd McConkey in the second round, really athletic wide receiver from Georgia. Then we drafted Cornelius Johnson and Brendan Rice, very high potential wide receivers, even if they're not blazing fast. And then we signed DJ Chark, the big bodied wide receiver in free agency, 4.3 speed, and now we are officially signing Praise Olatoke from the NFL International Players Program. He was given a tryout at minicamp. Let me give you guys the full breakdown on Praise. So Praise was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and then he moved to Scotland at the age of 5. He grew up playing tons of sports like soccer, obviously it's Europe, track, and rugby. You should remember that for later on. He played rugby, okay? He was such a gifted athlete that he was recruited by Trinity Western University, which is in Canada, to run track for them under an athletic scholarship. And while he was there, he broke school records for the 60-meter dash and the 300-meter dash. So that means that as a track athlete, he does long distance and not so long distance really well. So he's not just a long distance runner, which means to me that he can translate that speed to the field. He ran a 6.82 in the 60-meter dash and then broke his own record to run it at 6.75 seconds. And while he was at Trinity Western, he won the Scottish Under-20 Athlete of the Year award in 2019. And then he also competed in the Great Britain European Athletics Under-20 200-meter dash. This guy's just a pure freaking runner athlete. And just for reference here, the 60-meter dash is about like 65 yards. So in 2021, he decided to transfer to Ohio State because he was interested in possibly playing football. Now, he had been interested in playing football since he was 15, but being in Scotland, you know, his high school didn't have a team, so he played rugby. And then at Trinity West in Canada, you know, they obviously didn't have a team either, so he only ran track on that scholarship. But he spent 2 years on the Ohio State track team and then tore his Achilles in 2022, which is the same year that he actually ended up being on the All Big Ten Honors track team. And then he decided, instead of trying out for the Ohio State football team with Ryan Day, you know, the big time Ohio State team, he wanted to just join the club football team, which is like a football league that is basically run by the students, and they were founded in 2010. Now, who was going to tell me that this was going on? Because I had no idea that this was a thing until I was researching this guy. But there are 16 teams that play in this league, and it's basically like college football's version of like the G League in the NBA, or like how MLB has the leagues below. You know, that's what it is for college football basically, except it's run by students. And, you know, Ohio State has won 2 titles in the league in 13 years. So they're a pretty good team. They're tied for the most titles. Now, before his first game action, he only had about 9 or 10 practices under his belt to learn the entire game of football, which is extremely complex, as we all know. But his first game, he went out onto the field and he struggled, man. He had a lot of penalties. He just didn't have a good grasp of how to play yet. But then he said, "My whole life, I feel I've gotten a little favor. Things eventually swing my way," and they absolutely did, because in just his second game, after struggling so much in that first one, he was able to catch a screen pass and take it all the way for a 65-yard touchdown. And he looks pretty good while doing it. From that point on, he was able to have 7 catches for 231 yards and 4 touchdowns, while also being used as a kick returner. And since he was so new to the game, he was primarily used in like screen passes, just running go routes with outside leverage and trying to beat guys, you know, purely with speed. I saw one route where he ran like a 5-yard hook towards the middle of the field, and he definitely looked a little raw doing that because he put his hands up way too early, and then he was just kind of standing there waiting for the ball. But you know, he's got natural athleticism for sure with the ball in his hands. And since he was also used as a kick returner, that tells me that that team, the coaches, they felt confident enough in his ball skills in order to catch a kickoff and then, handle it. This guy is obviously very fast, but he moves extremely well also. He's got some agility to his game, and surprisingly for a sprinter, he was able to take contact pretty nicely from what I saw. And listen, what I saw is very, very limited, obviously, because what he has shown on the field is extremely limited as well. He's just not put up a lot of snaps. But the reason that he is able to take on contact better than some of these other former track stars that we see converting to football, it's because of his rugby experience. He said himself that the hits in football, they were just not as bad as rugby, and he was hit a few times, but nothing as bad as what he experienced in rugby. And it's probably because he's got some more protection in football, but he can take a hit. He's a track star, and the best part about all of this is that, yeah, the Chargers signed him, but he's not going to count towards that 90-man roster limit because he is part of the NFL's International Players Program. Now, the Chargers have 2 players on that list, with CJ Okoye from last year and Praise Olatoke from this year, so don't expect really either of these guys to make the final 53-man roster for this season. They're probably going to be on the practice squad, and they're not going to be taking up a spot on the practice squad either, so it's just kind of like free guys that we can develop here. They're just both really raw when it comes to the fundamentals of playing their positions, but my gosh, do they have the size and athleticism that teams really covet. That's the whole interest here. It's like a gold mine of what you want as a coach. And also, it is interesting that CJ Okoye, in his very first game, he sacked Stetson Bennett in the Rams preseason game last year. So they both got off to some pretty good starts in their initial football action, although it took Praise 2 games because the first game he did struggle. But, like he said, things go his way ultimately. And he also said he works extremely hard and he is willing to do what the others won't and put in more hours in order to be successful and make it in the NFL. That sounds like a Harbaugh guy to me. Now let's get into the numbers here, because I know I've said it, he's got some great size and athleticism, but here's the numbers. He is 6'2", 200 pounds, roughly 200 pounds, and he ran a 4.36 40-yard dash at his pro day, which was just this past March, like 2 or 3 months ago. He earned himself an invite to the Eagles rookie minicamp after that pro day, but he didn't, get signed by them. And then the Chargers, they invited both him and Tony Jefferson for tryouts for their minicamp this past week. Both of those guys were able to earn themselves a spot on this team. With the huge emphasis on the small details of playing football and the technique and like building the foundation of playing smart football that the Chargers are creating here, I think Praise Olatoke has walked into a situation where, he's got all the tools to be successful. And we'll see if his time with the Chargers will also swing his way, just like he says his whole life, everything swings his way eventually. He's got a lot of work to do, but he said he is hungrier than ever, and he has already learned so much just from being a part of the International Players Program. So just imagine how much that he's going to learn under this coaching staff with Jim Harbaugh, guys like Sanjay Lal, Mark Trestman, Greg Roman. I already know what some of you guys are thinking. He's not going to beat out Quentin Johnston, okay? Quentin Johnston is going to stay on this team. But I do think, though, that if he develops really well in like a year or two, he could forge himself a spot on this team. He turns 24 on June 23rd, which is next Sunday. So happy preemptive birthday to him. But DJ Chark is the same body type and athlete that Praise is. DJ Chark is 1 inch taller, and he ran a 40-yard dash in 0.01 seconds faster. So they're very, very similar. But if Praise can become that big-bodied, deep threat wide receiver that can attack the ball at its highest point, similar to what DJ Chark gives you, but he's going to be 28 years old. Praise is much younger than him. And also, Praise can give you a little bit after the catch, just from what we saw during his very limited play in the club football league. So if he can carve out a role, I think that's the role that he's going to really be trying to go for. That's what the coaches are going to try and get out of him. And DJ Chark, he's not going to be on this team long-term as of right now because he's only on that 1-year contract. I'm not saying that Praise signing to the Chargers is, a big warning sign that DJ Chark is not going to be on this team for sure after this year. He could still be re-signed if he plays well. But I'm just saying that is the prototype of what Praise Olatoke could be in the NFL. And if you want to find out more about Tony Jefferson, who the Chargers also signed in minicamp, you can click this video right here.